We're going live. Any second now. I'm live. Yes, welcome to this Sunday service. It is, well, actually, it's a bit of an everything day today. We're having sunshine, blue skies, need sunglasses. Then sudden it's rain, and then there's a bit of thunder and more rain, then black sky and wind and lots of things. But anyway, it makes a difference. Welcome to the Sunday service. We are here. There's always this weird lag when I'm starting off first because there's two things running here. One is YouTube itself and the other one is OBS, which is the thing that actually pushes out the stream itself. So while OBS says I'm live, maybe YouTube doesn't say I'm live. So there's this moment where I'm sitting there looking at the screen wondering what's going to happen next. Good few people already waiting. Thank you very much. Click the like button on your way in. Thanks. This is, of course, the 2 o'clock Sunday service we have every single week. This week we're going to talk about the end of the way a car company operates, but also the way some car companies will probably not make it through the next 5-6 years, at least in their current, the way they look right now, the way they operate right now, can't continue to exist. They're going to have to change. This will also affect dealerships. This will also affect your future employment in a dealership. And the way cars are delivered to people, the way people buy cars, the way people interact with car companies and how that works. So even if you just work in the car industry, this is going to be a pretty interesting discussion for all of you. Of course, we'll cover all kinds of other topics as well. You may have noticed this morning, again, I put out last week's podcast, went up this morning on iTunes. So if you're a podcast person, you like this kind of podcast things, you can listen to it back at any point on a podcast. It's on iTunes, it's on Spotify, it's on Podbean, it's on something else that I can't remember the name of, but it's on a pile of different places. So you can get this podcast anywhere, pretty much. It's become a sort of a monster all to itself. It's a YouTube phenomenon, I suppose you could call it, in its own little way, to have such a unique little audience in. Loads of videos going up as well. And loads of trips. Next few couple of weeks is going to be really busy. Next week I'm going to see the Volkswagen Caddy world premiere, new one, possibly electric, possibly hybrid, possibly mild hybrid, possibly all these possibilities attached to it. I think I might going to need a light at some point. It does look a little bit dull out there. Well, should we see as the day goes on? It's only really 2 o'clock now, isn't it? We're already into it. But yeah, Marty O is in the house and he's in before the Shinners, is what he says. We have had our election results. We don't have a government in Ireland yet. It doesn't look like, to me, I would suggest we're going to have another election. I really don't think that the Green Party, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are going to make a single party to make a government. We need an opposition, and I don't think any of them are going to bend over and take it from Sinn Féin, and I don't think Sinn Féin are going to bow down in a corner and be nice little happy chappies and do what Fine Gael tell them to do. So I just don't think it's all going to work out. So I think we're going to have another election in a couple of months, really. Massive gust of wind now and huge drop of rain there. Just all of a sudden it's gone black outside from being blue sky a few minutes ago. Weird. Byron's here as well. He's waiting. He's watching the Grand Prix, which is the electric. I've never watched a whole go of it. I'm sure it's brilliant. But I've never really watched a lot of Grand Prix. I only watched it back in the day. Back in the day when Senna was in it and all them kind of guys. And Hill and all the kind of heroes of the thing who drove around in metal tubs. Johnny Dub has finally made it on time. He says he's early, but actually early is just on time, Johnny. I'm sorry to inform you. I am that person. If you arrange to meet me at 9 o'clock in the morning, I will be there at 8:45. That is just how I operate. That's not a reflection on other people. That's not to say you have to be there at 8:45. I have no problem waiting till 9:30 till somebody turns up, but I will be there from 8:45. So that's just how I am. I'm early for absolutely everything. Hopefully I won't be early for my own funeral, but that's okay. Mark Turner-Smith is here as well. Afternoon. Peter Cupid was here last week. Remember that? Dr. P, afternoon all. Johnny Dub says, as per title, I'd say Ford are in big trouble. Dropping all car production in the USA is madness. Really tough place, USA, for to produce and sell cars. Ford's number one selling car in the US has been as Johnny points out in the next comment, is the F-Series trucks, which is the F-150 and all that kind of big series of them. It's been huge, but realistically, we're at the pinnacle of what can be achieved with those kind of trucks. You know, you can only go so far before those things become uneconomical, and you have to go battery with some of them. And then getting range and getting the fuel economy and the highway and all that sort of stuff. It's all very hard to do. Ford is a very big company, but Ford America is also a gargantuan country that consumes like no other. So it's quite difficult. It's gone absolutely pitch dark now, and it's pounding down with rain. Weird weather, I have to say. Weird weather last few weeks. It's been very strange. If it continues, I'll get a light out. I forgot to bring a light in. He's here somewhere though. Andy McAfee is here as well, and he's saying that Ford might be moving to Mexico for production. Ford already produced a number of cars in Mexico. The EcoSport was a Mexican car to begin with. It was just shipped over here. Looks like the Ford Puma for sales in the US we made in Mexico as well. So there's a good few bits and pieces they already do in Mexico. It wouldn't surprise me if they moved their entire operation to Mexico, because it's geared up for it. And the cost of doing business in the US, see, this is something everybody forgets about. When car companies started, it was made by people who had a passion for vehicles and making things, and Henry Ford and all that. They started the business behind it. So the business is that a business has to turn profit. If it costs you £1 million to open and run a factory per week, it has to make 1.5 million. You know, so you can reinvest some into research and development, into developing new safety equipment, into changing the style and the look of the cars every 3-4 years, into door handles, into electronics, into whatever it is. You have to recycle that other $500,000 into the business and continue to grow. If it costs 2 million, you need to make 2.5 million, 3 million, and so on. This cost of business is a big factor for car companies, because they are gargantuan businesses now. They are massive business, turning over billions per year. The number one employer in Spain at the moment is SEAT. So just think about that for a second. Spain, physical size of Spain, I think it's the biggest landmass in Europe of a country. So it's a huge country, and yet the number one employer is SEAT, a car company, and most of that in Barcelona. So, you know, when they don't make money, they just fall apart. Eric Watcher's here as well. Afternoon, everyone. Rough day out there today. It really is. It'll brighten up again in a minute. Just seems to be coming and going. Bit blustery, but fairly dry and bright here so far. Andy's up north. I'm in the middle of the country. Jerry Wicklow might be in Wicklow. Hi, Bob. And that's from the soggy cold North Midlands there. He's from the North Midlands. And it's just literally hopping off me now out the back window, which is very weird. Marty O, just home from work. Windy driving out there. I was out for a drive this morning. I don't normally go out for a drive all that much anymore. Used to just go for the crack, but now I'm too busy. But this morning I decided to go for a little 45-minute, 50-minute drive in the Peugeot 508 SW, the estate version. No prettier car I don't think you can get on the market, but the interior is just so frustrating. The little tiny steering wheel and the touch screens that only randomly work here and there, and it's just such a frustrating car to be almost perfect, to be one of the most beautiful machines on the road, and just be wrong on so many different levels. Took a bike out yesterday. It was bad. By bike he means a motorbike. Cross 13 is here as well. Afternoon. Operator Hoots says good afternoon. New car on the light board. New car is written on my light board, which is dark at the moment because it's just black outside. But yes, we are talking about new cars. New car on the way as well, so we'll get to that as the time goes on. Wind starting to pick up in North County Dublin. It just is passing over here. It's going kind of your direction. It's heading that way, kind of up the country and across that way. Definitely live and loud, good stuff. Cross 13 says, got an earlier delivery date on my Model 3 than expected. March 20th, less than 5 weeks away. You'll have to free up space now for your Model 3 in your house and clean everything and make sure it's all polished and clean. I saw a picture being tweeted around this morning of a Tesla supercharger unit underwater, essentially. Not sure if that's real, but I have seen that before. Pleasant Gloucestershire got that as well. Hellhound says, hey up Bob, and to all good folks in the chat. Good man, Hellhound. You're on TuneIn radio app too. I'm on just the other one, TuneIn. You know, if anybody ever uses it, I listen to it quite regularly to listen to BBC Six Music, and on TuneIn my podcast is actually there as well, so you can get that as well. Now I got a press release this morning from the AA, from Barry Allward, actually, from the AA, which is coming from Conor Fortnan. They say there is a drop in petrol prices, fuel prices, petrol and diesel at the pump. The average price is 141.9 cent per litre. That's a decrease of 2.6. My God, that is pounding down. And petrol is 144.5. So that's a small. However, the price still remains slightly above the cost of 141.7 in December. So petrol is. Wait now, that's a decrease on diesel. Petrol 141. Okay, so petrol has gone down in price. Yeah, so you can all go out and buy a V8 now because petrol's cheaper. Cross says Tesla is opening a temporary second delivery location in Dublin. Are you kidding? They're opening a second location anyway in Dublin to handle the volume of deliveries in February and March. Not crazy how quick Tesla have gone from zero sales to all of these sales all of a sudden. That's marketing, but it's really marketing. They're cars I don't think are really that much better than other people on the market. It's just Tesla. It's the group marketing. They do such a good job with that. Every time that Elon there opens his mouth to speak a word, the whole world listens to the guy. So it's a very unusual place for a car company to be. They can't keep up with their own deliveries. They're so far behind in their own deliveries that they don't make enough parts for spare parts. So if you crash your Model S in any way, even like a little reversing ding into something, you need a spare part, it ain't happening. So just bear that in mind. Protect your investment. Zdenko's here as well. Good man, Zdenko. Paul McMillan says, good afternoon, Bob. It was a great day for staying in with a good live stream. You see, I'm like a good book or a good podcast. You can read and listen to this at the same time, and it's live. You get to ask questions as well. Unfortunately, if next week you listen to this as a podcast, it's not live. You can't ask any more questions. You can get in touch. I have opened a podcast end of things for sponsorship as well, if anyone wants to sponsor that sort of thing. There is a number of people I'm talking to about sponsorship, but I'm not really happy with any one of them, if I'm honest. They want a lot for very little money. So I'd rather just keep it the way it is, because this way I just get to say whatever the hell I want to say instead of being forced down the road of saying particular things, nice things about particular things. I got offered yesterday by a company, funny enough, a gaming company, to talk about their streaming service or something, and they were offering $150, and I had to make a 1-minute ad for this $150. Is that it? Is that it? Are you all mad? Nobody should do that for $150. You want to be charged a good $2,000 for that sort of stuff. Like, and I know that sounds like really expensive, but you have to make the ad. Stupid. Annie McPhee says, can Bob come along to film your delivery experience for us? No. The Tesla delivery experience is very private. You see it brightening up now. Look, all of a sudden the sun is coming. Not sun, but like the white skies. The black clouds drifted off and blue skies starting to appear again. Weird. Mick Mulcahy's here. Ocean Froggy says, hi Bob, how was lunch? Lunch was lovely. We cooked up some steaks here and had a lovely little lunch. Not a steaks. We cooked little strips of a leftover piece of steak we had. And we made guacamole, and guacamole is really easy. If you want to make it, get a good ripe avocado, like soft, squishy, squish it up into a little ball. Bit of salt, because it changes the chemical makeup of how guacamole appears or how avocado appears. A little bit of salt. Cut up a whole chili. Take out the seeds if you don't want it really hot, or just leave in the seeds you want to burn the mouth off yourself. Put it all into a bowl. Mush it. Don't leave it too lumpy. And then you have guacamole. Away you go. Don't add oil or anything else to it. Don't be messing around with stuff. A little bit of natural yogurt on top of the guacamole to take the edge off it. Now, Daniel 1 says, Opel are in trouble, I'd say. I know PSA own Opel now, but I'd say they will kill the brand. There is good rationale behind what you're saying there, Daniel, honestly. Opel were in deep trouble. Another company who's in deep trouble for a long time now is Nissan. They're really, really big trouble for a very long time, and it's not looking any better for them every day that passes. Good old Carlos Ghosn there was snatched off a street in Japan and interviewed until he said what he was told to say, and then he absconded to Lebanon. Lads, there's a book in that. That's like Jason Bourne style book that happened to Carlos Ghosn there. But I've met Carlos a couple of times. Well, I won't say I'm on first name terms with him, but I've met Ghosn a couple of times. He was at Geneva Motor Show, and he was at... Was he at Paris or Frankfurt or something? More recently. Such a guy who loved absolutely everything he said. Brilliant. But anyway, he's gone off the market, and that puts Nissan at a big disadvantage. And they're being supported by Renault, and Renault don't really fancy firing a lot more money at Nissan anymore, even though Renault bailed out Nissan once upon a time. So there's this element of where that's gonna land and how it's gonna be, because it's a Japanese company, Nissan, and then you have the Koreans out there who are massacring the market with their stuff. It's not just Hyundai and Kia. We've got SsangYong there as well, and the vast majority of batteries that are being made for all of the companies out there today are being made in Korea. It's big companies working behind that sort of stuff. So we'll see, like Skoda's getting all, Volkswagen Group are getting most of their batteries from Korea. So like, where do you go? There's the engine, more or less the engine of the car, the fuel source of the car being made in Korea, and the rest of the car being assembled in Czech Republic or wherever they're going to assemble it. Ian Shaw said, "Good afternoon, Bob. Just would like to know what you think of the Skoda Kodiaq and the Kodiaq VRS. I love the VRS. It's just too expensive for what it is. It's too much money. The Kodiaq is actually a really, really good car. A big, honest, beautiful thing that has 7 seats and works very well, very affordable. If you can buy it in a decent diesel with 7 seats and DSG, you're going to never need another car, being honest with you. But VRS is brilliant, but the extra money is just like, it's just a lot of money to fire at it. So stick with a standard Kodiaq if you can, and just buy that, and you'll be happy out forever, promise." Alan Burke, I'm actually thinking about changing the mic, by the way. I was looking at these. If anyone's got a recommendation on a kind of a podcasty condenser mic, one that looks at your face and picks up the audio directly in front of it and less kind of echo from the room, because this was never meant to do what it's the job it's doing. That's not what I bought it for, but I bought it for voiceover work. But now it's become a podcasting mic, and it's currently called a blue. It's a white color snowball, snowball ice. It's called, and it works very well. But I want to get a podcasting mic, a proper one. Alan Burke says, "Horrible weather. It's gone blue out there again now. I mean, it's just like a bit of white fluffy cloud and blue. So real stormy stuff, real sea weather, like the way you'd get it in big flat sea. But we're getting it right here. It snowed here last week as well, so we're getting everything. The Anus, I can't pronounce your name. Danius maybe? Hi Bob. I'm in need of for a motorway muncher, thinking 3-litre TDI A6, 2-litre TDI Passat or 2-litre TDCi Mondeo, 2011 or so, 10 grand euro, and it's a 150 kilometre daily trip. Is that a 150 kilometre round trip or 150 kilometres either direction, which is 300 kilometres? So anyway, it doesn't matter, you want a diesel. The one that's going to sit on the motorway the best out of that group is going to be the 3-litre TDI Audi A6, simply because you just won't notice the miles. If you particularly put it into the active cruise control one, if it's available on it, with the DSG, just stick on the stereo and forget about it. You'll just waft through the rest of the day. 2-litre TDI Passat does very similar job and is actually an incredible mile muncher, but wouldn't be as popular on the trade-in later on. So when you want to get rid of it, the 3-litre TDI is going to be worth a bit more. And the 2-litre TDCi Mondeo is actually okay, but it's very lumpy and doesn't have any involvement whatsoever in the driving, but would be comfortable. The best value of those three would be the 2-litre TDI Passat. You get an X lease one very quickly, loads of them around. If you can buy an estate one, you're going to future-proof yourself forever. You never have to worry about it again. Marcus Hogan says, "Hi Bob, it's been a few weeks." It has, yeah. Mother just got an e-Golf as a runaround. Lovely car, crap range, but fine in Galway. Might try to upgrade when ID3 comes out, but she was stuck for a car. Nothing wrong with the e-Golf. I like e-Golf. You can get good range of it. You just have to be really careful. It's funny, it tells you the realistic range, right? A lot of cars, when you turn those electric cars, when you turn them on first, it goes 500 kilometres up the bleeding road, then it's down to 300 kilometres. You only done 10 kilometres. You know, they're guessometers is what they're actually called by the kind of owners of them, or the community on the internet call them guessometers. So it kind of guesses your range and how, depending on how hard you drive them. I've gotten good range from an e-Golf. What I really like about an e-Golf is it's just a Golf with electric. You don't lose really any space in the cabin or any space in the boot. You lose a little bit in the boot, but you don't lose a lot of space within the car. It does shift the centre of gravity down to the very bottom of the car, which changes the handling from a standard Golf. But other than that, so you don't really lose a whole lot. And it's dead comfy, and it's dead quiet, and it's an automatic. So like you can't really go very far wrong. If you're in a city, e-Golf is going to be the best one in that sort of range, because it will constantly be recharging while you're driving along. If you want to talk to one another and you put the @ symbol behind someone's name, you go @ Bob Flavin or @ Andy McAfee or something, and you're talking to them directly, I won't read it out, don't worry. Now thousands of people are not going to hear us. Loads of you in. God, it's a busy day today already. Other car companies, so yeah, I see Sean McKay was just said there, Mitsubishi is a car maker that's dying, if not already dead. They're not dead. See, we look at the Irish rationale behind what we're thinking of. So Ireland sells between 100,000 and 120,000 cars a year, right? Now, that's about as much as a kind of very busy Manchester dealership, right? If you think about it in the UK. So when you look at someone like Mitsubishi, who might only shift 100 cars a year or 150 cars a year, that's doing okay maybe for them. And the same, the one I'd really want you to look very carefully at is Fiat and Alfa Romeo, particularly this country. Fiat at the beginning in around 2010, 2011, had a slush fund, what was called a fund of just cash in the bank, just a bit of money in the bank, of €7.5 billion, just sitting in the bank doing nothing. Then they did this crazy step of sponsoring like a World Cup or something, and just kind of have that. So now there's not a whole lot left of that fund, and they're really not selling any more cars. And they haven't had a decent car for sale for a long time, other than say a Fiat 500 or something, which sold very well for them over time, but it looks old now. They've forgotten entirely about their very best car. The very best car Fiat ever made was Fiat Panda, and they totally forgot about it. They brought it out, it looked good, nobody bought it, so they just let it go. And Alfa Romeo has been in the doldrums for a long time. Beautiful cars, but always in trouble. So Fiat, Alfa, Mitsubishi, yes, to some degree Mitsubishi's in a little bit of trouble, but they are kind of on the edge. They are with people, but they are now starting to look at their feet a little bit, kind of going, hang on a second, we're into bed here with Renault and Nissan, and both those companies are in a bit of trouble, and now we're going to get dragged into this little bit of trouble. So who knows where that's going to go. That could be very troublesome in the future. Daniel wants says Barlow, Opel and Kilkenny are getting rid of Opel at the end of March. They told me the other day. And apparently Nissan are great sellers, at least compared to Opel. Thanks for your response. No problem at all. I know the lads on a Barlow, Opel and Kilkenny. Or I think I do know some of the lads on there. That'd be an unusual move for those guys. They've been Opel for a very long time. And Opel in Ireland has just been taken over by a new MD and a new PR person. Emma Toner's moving from Peugeot to Opel. It's going to be a strange. James moved from the MD moved from Kia to Opel Ireland, where he used to be the MD before, actually, funny enough. Back in Jack Charlton days he was in there, but he's moving into Opel as well. So Opel is on the way up for a while, because they're going to get a lot of attention, and they've just been bought out by Gowron Group in Ireland. So we have a couple of importers in Ireland, not just like Volkswagen in Ireland is Volkswagen Group, so it belongs to Volkswagen. But we actually have Hyundai is owned by an important importer, and Peugeot, Opel, I think, and some other one is owned by Gowron Group, which is a different group. It's not Peugeot Ireland technically. So I'm not too sure how Opel's going to do over the next few months. If they don't get enough product on the market, it's going to be a big problem. That's a big problem. They just don't have the Grand Annex and things. It's just not up to standard. Too complicated. They have a new Corsa on the market, and I'm going to the electric launch of the Corsa as well. So that's going to happen. I'm going along to that. So I'm looking forward to that sort of stuff. But I don't know whether that's going to be a big good for them or where that's going to go. Let's have a look. Mark Turner. Moev says, are SsangYong good quality cars? The current range, aren't bad. The current range of stuff that they've got isn't actually that bad. The name has a lot of overhang because it used to have leftover Mercedes stuff in it, bits and pieces that came out of the Mercedes group. But Mercedes has been throwing stuff at Tesla for ages. So half of what you used to get in an old Tesla was the switchgear and running gear from Mercedes. So Mercedes have always been selling off their old stuff, but they used to sell it into SsangYong. And unfortunately, towards the end of SsangYong in Ireland, they started selling this diesel engine to them. And it was rubbish. Let's be serious, right? They took out the turbo and they put in a sort of a weird supercharger, and then decided to put the turbo back into it again, and made a complete balls of the car. The whole thing was useless. It would just blow up on a bleeding road regularly. So they got rid of all of that. And SsangYong is now starting to make its own stuff, but they're still using a bit of Mercedes gear here and there. But the stuff that they actually have coming out wouldn't be too bad. The new Corando and things, but just they don't have the brand name here to go with it. But I don't foresee... SsangYong has come and gone out of Ireland multiple times. SsangYong is actually fairly big in Southeast Asia. You'd see a fair few SsangYongs on the roads around Vietnam and stuff. So they do okay because they're a Korean company, so they do okay over that way. It's just over here, it's a tough one. Again, SsangYong is done by an importer here in this country as well. Right, and look at my email. I'm sure I didn't miss anything. You can, of course, support this channel if you want to. By the way, there's Super Chat here on YouTube, but you can also do it by PayPal, Patreon. Any of those services is always really good. I do need to update a lot of equipment this year. It's going to be a funny year, and we're going to have a lot of stuff. There's a lot of... events coming up, electric car events coming up this year that I'm going to be speaking at, so I'm going to give you all a list of that. I'm probably coming to a town near you. We're going on tour, as far as I know. This is kind of on and off the record. It seems to be going on tour. Have been asked to come along to multiple different events to do my talk on electric cars, because people like the idea of a journalist just saying whatever the hell he wants to say. Chris Dolan Egan says rain, snow, sun, hailstones. Yeah, the sun is out now, and I really do mean the sun is actually shining in the backyard and perfectly blue skies out there. I'd say you'd freeze to death. What you have to worry about in Ireland is the humidity element here. So the wind chill here, you can look out and see lovely blue sky. It's a bit breezy. You walk outside and it's -4 in the wind. It just feels cold because there's ice in that wind. It's very hard. So we have a bit of everything here. Dave McCarthy says, I worry about Subaru and Mazda and the other small brands. They need to buy an EV platform and build a car around it. Toyota is large enough to delay, but not for long. Toyota would probably be in the top 3 car sales in the whole world, but not necessarily their hybrid range. They've done a very good job marketing here in Ireland with the Corolla and the Camry coming back. But Mazda have been hanging about. They have an electric car coming. They have. I can confirm. They definitely do. I don't know where it's going to be for them. I'd really like to see what Mazda are going to do next, because Mazda are a very conservative, like Suzuki, very conservative Japanese company, and they don't move very quickly. When they move, they go all in, but they've moved quite gradually forward, doing little bits, the mild hybrid, bit of this, bit of that, and then it's all go. Mazda have been alone. They've been out from under Ford for years. They used to be owned by Ford. Lucky they're not now, because it would have been sold 10 times at this stage. But you're right. I think Mazda and Subaru have an e-Boxer. I'm going to be driving that in a couple of weeks as well. I've driven it already, but it's certainly not a European car. But it is a mild hybrid again. We're at that hybrid stage. They're kind of moving that direction. They're very carefully moving forward because none of them want to make a jump to be totally electric. They want to have a little bit of held back as the employment-wise and stuff. Cross13 says LG and Samsung have large battery plants in Poland and Hungary that are supplying the German car makers. There you go, you see. We have makers over here as well. I saw a tweet the other day as well about Tesla chopping down a forest to build their whatever they call their plants that make electric batteries. That's a forestry area. That's what happens all the time. We've done that for years. Just chop down forests and build a factory around it, and then replant a forest somewhere else. We have carbon offsets. You get fined if you do that these days and don't pay your carbon offsets. See. Brian O'Donnell says, hi Bob and gang. Haven't been here in 8 weeks. What's your excuse? As work most Sundays. No power here because of Storm Dennis. Alright, I have plenty of power. Do you want some of mine? Send it over. It's very stormy again, but yeah, this blue sky now again is nice and sunny. It's the weirdest weather, weird weather. But then it is spring. In my head, it's spring. I feel like we're springing forward, you know, and the time will change soon. I'm really looking forward to. I love getting up in the morning now because it's bright, and I love that. That's very important for me. Hang on, I'm scrolling back up because it jumped forward on me there. Mazda MX. Oh yeah, that's right. Mazda MX-30 is on the way, which is a full EV. That won't be long. Subaru. The more I think about Subaru, the weirder it gets. Because if you actually look at the e-Boxer, I did a review on the last one recently. It was my very first Subaru. Subaru used to be owned by a company here in Ireland that's an importer as well, and still are, but they've been sold to another company. They're a weird company, you know, they really are. They make very good, very reliable cars, but they dropped all of their rally heritage. They dropped all of the kind of boy racer stuff that everybody's needed. The Impreza 2-litre turbo. So did Mitsubishi. You know, they both dropped the stuff that they used to do. That's down to CO2 emissions and stuff now, but that was how they survived. That was how their brand went forward, because they were selling based upon what everybody wanted. Colin McRae Rally and all that. But now they've none of that. So it's very hard to sell what is essentially a tractor, the Subaru Boxer thing. You know, when you're driving around the place, it'll plow off through any field and go wherever you wanted to go up any kind of mountain. But who needs that? Like, that you're going to compete with a Range Rover? You know, that's a hard place to be. Cross, they're all talking about another. Alan Montgomery, hi Bob, this is a superb mic for what you need. This is, what is? The mic? My mic? No, what mic? Tell me what mic that is. Abdul Rahim says, we Indians are very disappointed with new cars from Skoda and will come to India late 2021. I believe you're getting an Indian only car very soon, which I've seen from Skoda. I've seen pictures of it. Interesting market, India. Your market is a very odd place because you have very disparate ends of it. So it's very hard to find a car that suits everybody. You know, like the Tata Nano won't suit the kind of wealthy end of the market, but it doesn't really suit the poverty end of the market either. It's not that cheap to own a car anyway. But just remember that one, that you've an odd market, Abdul, and I'd love to visit though. I'd love to visit and see what it's actually like. Spend a bit of time wandering around the place, just see what the whole place is like. Alan Montgomery says, Rode Podcaster Broadcast Dynamic Microphone. Really? That's a good one. Because I looked it up the other day. I'm a big fan of what Rode do. I have a lot of Rode stuff already. I have a little shotgun mic for the top of the camera, and I have the wireless mic that they do as well. And I actually have their one that goes into the phone, the lapel mic that goes into the phone. I have that as well. So £137.75 and free delivery on Amazon for a podcast Rode. I will look that up. Is that a USB mic? I'll have to look it up. I can't look it up right now, but is that a USB? Did that go straight into a laptop like this, or do I need a big box to plug it into and then goes around to something else? That's the bit that annoys me, having to buy another box. I did a podcast the other day for Aviva, where I answered a pile of questions a woman had. If you're an Aviva customer, you'll get it in your inbox. I'll appear all of a sudden. If you're not, I won't. But he had a Rode system, which was a little kind of mixing desk attached to boxes and things. It was very good, very interesting. I have to say, it was very good. Alan Montgomery, thank you very much. Love the channel and how your words are your own, freedom of speech. Thank you very much. Alan Montgomery has sent some money by PayPal. You're very kind. It's always massively appreciated. It'll go into, I see you answer on the screen as well, it'll go into that Rode Podcaster. I'm hoping to get something changed over before next Sunday. Oh, by the way, I won't be here next Sunday. I won't be on this next Sunday, so I'll have to come up with something else between now and then. I will find you content for next Sunday. Relax. So you'll have something to see at 2 o'clock next Sunday. It just won't be live because very soon every Sunday is going to be really busy that I can't get away from. So I will have to adjust what the Sunday service does, but also I need to take a Sunday off between now and then because I'm always working on a Sunday. My wife is giving out. Annie McPhee says, Skoda in Indian and Russian markets are very different cars to the European models. The Rapid, for example, was scrapped in Europe, but still on the go further east. There is a lot of cars that are made by car companies that are global entities that we don't see over here, and ones that are adapted to run in different markets. For instance, my most hated car of all time, my dreary lump that should have never been manufactured, the one thing I would love to take a sledgehammer to, maybe fire out of a catapult quite a long distance and blow it up the other end, is a Nissan Tida. That car was actually designed for the Indian market, but Nissan Ireland, in their infinite wisdom, possibly not, Nissan Europe maybe, decided that because they got rid of the Primera and the Almira and all those other kind of 3-box saloon things that they had, they needed something to bring into the market, and so they brought a Tida. And of course, my eyes have never been the same since. I have literally single-handedly killed the second-hand market for Nissan Tidas because I absolutely hate that car. Everything about it, the inside, the outside, the seats, the engines, the whole lot is just an offence to everything that is motoring and should never be seen in public. By the way, there was a man on, I don't want to mention his name, but there was a man on last week who had a Toyota Previa drift car. And that's not a joke, a Previa drift car. No joke, we are going to, is it Mark Daly? Yes, it is. We, on the 9th and 10th in Mondello, there's drift games on, and I'm going as his passenger in a Previa. So we're going to see, he has a SsangYong that tows a Previa to these things, and he's going to drift them, and I'm going to be the passenger. So that'll be good crack. TF says Opel are just disposable cars. Fucking expensive disposable stuff. Opels aren't exactly the cheapest car in the market now or anything. I don't think there really is any cheap cars all left at this stage, in fairness. Even if you look at something like, is it Dacia? Like a Sandero, a basic Sandero, I think is somewhere around 15 grand out. Like, that's not cheap. The day we stopped having 10 grand cars is the day I knew that Ireland hated cars. So there you go now. Hi Bob, looking at a Volvo XC90 B5, great car, versus Land Rover Discovery needs 7 seats. Which is the best in your opinion, Kevin, right. My favourite of those two is the Volvo XC90 B5. It just ticked every single box for me, and very clever in all the right places. So clever boot when it's in 5-seat mode, fairly clever, decent space left over in 7-seat mode. It's a nice bright interior. You can order very good colours. There's some unusual ones. The one I had in the video is a bit green. Now, the Discovery is a contentious car and will probably be broken down at some time in the future. I've had 2 Discoveries on test, and both of them come up with error messages all over the dashboard, and they're press cars. And not that I'm special or anything, but tends to be the press cars that are given to us are very, very well looked after. And I don't mean they're looked after by the journalists. I mean, when the journalists drop them back, they tend to go into garages to be plugged in and make sure everything's working and everything's fine. That's so when it goes out to a journalist from like me or the Irish Times or the Indo or whoever it is, that doesn't break down. So the last thing you want to do is a journalist in a broke down car, right? That's like a sin. It hasn't happened to many cars. It's happened to a few. Megane RS broke down on the M50 one day. Not me driving it, but a journalist driving it. Multiple times it's happened, but very rarely. But I've had the 2 Discoveries I've had have been not broken down, but definitely error messages. I had one go into limp mode on me one day. The suspension was broke, it said, and I drove home. Max I could do was 30 kilometers an hour. I only had 2 kilometers left to go, so I went home with it, turned it off, rang Land Rover, went out, turned it on, it was fine. So who knows? But I would certainly say the Volvo XC90 B5 is one of the finest cars I've driven in the last 12 months. It's just a very, very good car, so I have no problem recommending that one for sure. Proper 7 seats as well. You will get 7 people in it. Cross says, well, the Opel Corsa EV is a PSA platform, so it should be fine. Yeah, it's the Peugeot 208, and Citroën will be coming out with their version of it as well, I'm sure, at some time in the future. So it's underneath, it is the PSA gubbins, engine, batteries, gearbox, all that stuff that's underneath. They just put a different shell on top of it. So if they manage to do a good job of it, the problem with that mentality, that's going to be the end of one of those car companies as well, right? The big problem with that sort of mentality is if you go to an Opel dealership and you think you like the car, and then you go to a Peugeot dealership and you think you like the car, it's the same car. You know, essentially it's the same thing. And the same for Citroën, and the same Volkswagen, Seat, Skoda, they have all the same problems as well. Now Audi's joined that as well with the A1 City Carver and the Polo and what's Skoda's Fabia version of it. You know, so they've all got this problem of trying to keep their costs down by developing as a group, but not creating anything unique. And that's an issue for people as well. So I think that's going to come to a head in the future, not very far in the future. I think that will come to a head for a lot of those car companies where they will have to start developing something themselves, because if they don't, people will just, which one of the 4 do I buy? Which one of the 3 do I buy? I just buy that one because sure, what's the point in having the other ones? Because they're all the same. Mark Turner Smith says, talking about Fiat Alfa Romeo, that new Giulia Saloon just looks fantastic. I mean, but so expensive. I have to admit, I'm tempted by the Giulietta hatchback as a family car in the future. Giulia is be nice, man. Giulia is the nicest, the most pretty 3-box saloon or estate you can buy on the road anywhere on earth, and drives very well. If you buy it with the Ferrari engine. No, don't buy it with the Ferrari engine. You get the fast version of it as well. But beautiful, beautiful, beautiful car. But the sales points, the dealerships in this country is so low. The sales points are so low. You just won't see many of them. It'll make them a classic of the future. I actually took a picture on my Twitter the other day of a Giulietta being towed on the back of an AA van. I didn't mention that. It's a unicorn of a thing to see on the road these days, actually operating, to see a Giulietta, and I loved it. 1.4 T-Spark engine was absolutely phenomenal. Little turbo engine, brilliant note to drive, but won't sell a bean. Some of the Lancia stuff, that kind of brand out there, it's popular enough still in Italy, but then the German car makers have come in and murdered Italy as well, so there's a lot going on there. And I do hope Alfa Romeo survive all this. Really, what needs to be done is someone like Volkswagen take Fiat and Alfa under their wing and let Alfa do what Alfa does, which is create fantastic machines that we all adore, and we're even happy to see the thing broke down outside the door. It's fine, that's okay, it's an Alfa, it's all right. It'll be fine. So it's kind of cool to see it coming back. But I would love to get my favourite now, if I was collecting a car tomorrow, I'm going to try, this is going to push the price of classic cars up again. I'm doing it again. Anyway, so I'd love to collect an Alfa 159 Estate in probably white or orange or something. Bog standard, absolutely bog standard, manual gearbox. Don't really care what the engine is. It would be nice if it was one of the bigger ones. But if it was a 1.6 petrol, it'd be fine as well. It's the look of the car. It was an absolute classic of design. It's going to be a future classic, collectible, 100%. Will be worth a fortune. And not very far future either. A lot of them are just rotting into a lump in the ground, or just driven into the ground. One or the other. Owen Walsh says, do you think it's worth waiting for the ID3 or get something else? Well, we don't know. Problem is their own. We haven't really driven it. Whether it's worth waiting, what I do like about Volkswagen is they've created a package around the car. So they have a very unique sales pitch and package where they're looking after your electricity. They can sell you electricity using their electricity company. They install their own chargers. It's this kind of pack that they've created, which attracted me to the unit, because it looks like Volkswagen have really invested a lot of time around the business of selling the car and not just selling you a car, selling you a sort of a lifestyle effort. So I kind of like that. It'd be certainly worth waiting to look at and just test. Right now, in that segment, you got Model 3. But Model 3 has such a long wait time on it now, it can be quite difficult to get a hold of one. So you're still going to be waiting for it. So why not just wait until the ID3 comes out and see whether you're happy with it. Now, the one thing that made people very disgruntled very quickly was the price of the thing in Ireland. It was 40 grand as far as I can remember now. Which that made people like, hang on a second, this is supposed to be an affordable car, like, hold up. A Renault Zoe is like 26 grand, so it's a big difference in price. But I would certainly wait to have a look at it, have a drive of it, a feel, a touch. Big criticism all along since we first seen the ID3 has been the kind of plasticky interior on it, that kind of very light plastic. So I'd say Volkswagen will do a lot of work to make sure that doesn't continue the way it is. So it'd be worth waiting for, I think. Andy McAfee says, could be a long wait for one with demand and delays to date. If you're in no rush, no harm in hanging on to see how that dust settles. That's true. But right now, I mean, the Peugeot Peugeot 208 was recalled and it never actually made it to Ireland. Now it's in Ireland again. I had one particular person, who will remain nameless, send me a photograph of one with the interior, the boot lid leaking. Really badly leaking, no license plates or nothing on it, but the boot lid already missing a sort of a water bung thing, those things, the drain holes, missing one of them, so the water all ingressed into the boot and it was stinking, he said. So it's not great now what's happening at the moment. The rush to get the cars out as quick as they possibly can means that some of the standard sort of checks that they do are slipping, Mo AV is here. It's a shame Nissan not selling the Pulsar. It was beaten by, oh my god, I jumped forward, sorry. I'll have to go back up. I'm going back up. Thanks, YouTube. My god, how many of you are here asking questions? Just realize how many questions there is. Bloody hell. Oh, here we are. It's a shame Nissan not selling the Pulsar as has been beaten by the Leaf electric car. Well, the Leaf has its own problems. Big problem for the Leaf is they didn't put in active cooling, and the cooling system or the cooling and heating of the battery is something that extends the range and the longevity of the battery anyway. So Nissan got beaten by Nissan by not developing the batteries properly, and by kind of cheapskating it, whereas Volkswagen Group are going with active cooling and active heating in certain markets as well. So when you go further north, you're going to get active heating. Tesla already do active cooling and heating from the very beginning. So really, Nissan Nissan had a thick end of a 10-year head start on people with the Leaf. 2010 was one of my first videos, and that was the launch of Nissan Leaf in Ireland. By the way, 2020 now, this year, is the 10-year anniversary of this channel. So I'm going to do something around June for the 10-year anniversary. But I digress. Nissan had a 10-year essentially head start with electric cars. And due to lack of investment, due to the company not doing enough work on the electric end of stuff, they've kind of flagged behind. Yes, they're the number one seller of electric cars for sure. They've made more of them out there than they had before, but it's still a difficult place. They never really developed it properly, really got going with it to make it a proper viable solution for everybody. And the lack of active cooling and active heating on the Leaf has held it back sales wise, and it doesn't drive very well. But it's okay, there's nothing wrong with it. If I was buying one, I'd certainly get one second hand. 2017, 2018 Nissan Leaf for sure. It'd be a good investment for the short range, but for you long range drivers, I guarantee it's not going to work as well as it should. Plus you can only maybe fast charge it once a day. You shouldn't really fast charge more than once a day, but if you really needed to, you can only do it once. Sorry, just checking my emails, make sure there's no one there. Don't forget, support channel if you can. Please hit the subscribe button. If you don't want to hit the subscribe button, you can support it financially by sending money by Super Chat, which is there, big S $ thing. Or you can do it by PayPal, or you can do it by Patreon, whatever it's called. There's links for all these things down below if you want to do that. It's great. It just keeps the press free, like me, to be able to say whatever it is I want to say on this channel without even worrying about it. Owen Walsh says problems with the Mazda 6, so switching soon, thanks. Mazda 6, yeah, good car, Mazda 6. Really enjoyed driving that car. In the 2.2 litre diesel was actually pretty good, but they weren't very economical. It's the problem with Mazda, and has been forever the problem with Mazda. They go for the sporty end of stuff, and they don't really do the kind of fuel economy vibe, the long range fuel economy. But they were pretty good cars. Usually Mazda lasts forever. Marty O, my brother has SsangYong Corando in Jersey, thinks it's the bee's knees. Can only do small miles in it as it's only a small island. Wouldn't buy one here though. I've been to Jersey. I've been to Guernsey as well. I went for a run in one of the two islands, Guernsey or Jersey, I can't remember. I ended up on the two islands doing some work for Midlands 103, and I went for a run in the afternoon, set off in the hotel and ran to the sea and ran out of Ireland, nowhere else. I had to run back. Just tiny places. Funny, some amount of money on them, but tiny places. But you're right about SsangYong. It's a pretty good car. I do like SsangYong Corandos. I think they're okay. They do a particular kind of job. They're pretty affordable. You get an okay response to them, and they are something different. I suppose they do like something different. Islands like Jersey, Isle of Man, etc. have to be perfect locations for EVs due to size. I wonder the size of Sark would allow them. I don't know why they don't cycle everywhere. I walked everywhere while I was on Guernsey. It's so small, like it's tiny. There's most of the roads you can't actually fit two cars down at the same time. Eamon Henry, ESB promised high-power charging hubs on motorways and national roads last year. Any update in this happening? So last year in our budget, the government awarded €20 million to ESB to continue the rollout of EV cars. Now 20 million is probably what it would require just to repair what they've already got out there without even laying down one more fast charge point. The problem with fast charge points is, so let's think of this from a business position for a second. If you are a garage owner, which is the likely location for a fast charge point, you have to give over a couple of charge spaces, a couple of places. If it's a small place, you've got a couple of spaces that are gone. Then you have to have 3-phase electricity running out to a location in the yard for a fast charger to go in. You pay 16 grand for these fast chargers to go in. Then you have to support it. When somebody has a problem out there, to come into the garage asking questions. Of course, people behind the counter going, don't know anything about that, just press the reset button or something. And on the flip side of that, supposing you put your fast charge in, you spend 16 grand on one of them in there, and then the council come along and they move a road, and you're further away from the motorway than you were like 2 years ago, and now nobody stops in your petrol station. What do you do then? It's a bit expensive. So this is why I keep saying that we should not be encouraging the buyers of cars by granting the buyers. We should be encouraging the businesses to put in the chargers everywhere. We should be giving the businesses VAT discounts and VAT rebates on charge points. I think people like IKEA should have to have 50 7.4 kilowatt chargers in their car park. It's a massive car park. 50 of them straight away indoors. No questions asked. They've got to go in, and they've got to go in within 6 months, and they can reclaim the VAT off every one of them. I also think any brand new petrol station today should be forced to put in a fast charge point. All of them. So there's no question whatsoever. If you're building a new petrol station, it must have a single fast charge point capable of providing at least 50 kilowatt hour charger. I also think petrol stations should be forced to put in multiple toilets. If anyone's visited that Circle K beside Goff's on the way up the N7, and it's got 3 toilets on the inside and some porta cabin thing on the outside, that was a disaster. How was that even allowed to be built? How was that allowed to be built? It's a filthy hole. Like, the toilets in there stink because there are thousands of people stopping, and every one of them going to the toilets. There's only 3 toilets in it. It's ridiculous. But as for more fast charge points are meant to be a continuation of a journey. It would be the number one thing. So if you're driving from here to Donegal, you need a fast charge point between here and there, somewhere halfway along that journey, along the main road. So that's why, to finish your journey, you use a fast charge point. You're not supposed to be charging a fast charge point every day. That would be the biggest part of that fast charge thing. You shouldn't be there the whole time. Marty O says, agree, Andy, but not charging infrastructure to speak of, really. The problem is our current charging infrastructure out there is rubbish. Like, it's really bad. You don't know whether you're coming or going. And now, I honestly, if you don't own an Audi or a Volkswagen Group car or one of the other brands that are attached to it, Ionity is just way too expensive. 71 cent per kilowatt hour is more expensive than diesel, right? It's at the pump. So Ionity's out. So then you're left with Tesla charge. But if you don't know that Tesla, you got a problem there as well. That doesn't work yet, right? Then you got ESB, which 99% of the time is either not working, or when you get there it says it is working, then it isn't working, or somebody unplugs you because they want to charge their Nissan Leaf while you're there. It's frustrating, very frustrating, because we're encouraging the wrong end of the market. We're selling electric cars, but we're not educating the people how to use them, and we're not encouraging businesses to put them in. I was in Midlands 103 the other day, and I said, would you put in two charge points, 2 7.4 kilowatt charge points outside, if I said you could reclaim the entire cost in VAT? And they went, yeah, of course, we'd put in 10 of them if we could reclaim it. Like, we'd put them in, no problem. So it's easy, it's very easy. Bernard83 says, well, Bob, any idea what insurance company will do a classic policy on a 98 MX5? Can't find a company who will touch a convertible. This is a big problem, Bernard, and I know it's real pain in the ass. By the way, I'm answering questions about 2:30 p.m, which is now 2:50 p.m, so I'm about 20 minutes behind you. I'll catch up on you not yet. Bernard, yes, problem with classic car insurance in this country. Some clubs, so like Morris Owners Club and stuff, actually arrange their own insurance through a broker system and get it that way. Now, the problem is, if you're trying to insure your own thing, 98 is not actually really classic car. It is, obviously, in our brains, it's a pure collectible car, right? But it's not under old classic insurance or vintage insurance. So you need to be 30 years old for vintage, 30 plus years old for vintage, and then under 30 to some degree. Probably cars from the 80s would be considered to be classics for insurance purposes, but a 98 MX5 is not considered a classic, so it's just like standard insurance on a car. The only hope you've got is to find a broker that's used to doing vintage cars, so used to getting vintage insurance and classic insurance, and ask them, because they will have more contacts in that business than other brokers, other than like AXA or someone would have no clue about that kind of thing. They just insure it as a normal car. So get in touch with, there is definitely a Mazda owners club in this country. I have talked to them. I've made a film for them one time as well. It's on my channel. talk to those guys. They've got something going on there for sure, and they will get you in touch with the right people. It's probably through some sort of a broker system here, if they can still get insurance. Insurance is a bit of a bad place to go in Ireland at the moment. Watertime. Yum. RTD Games. Do you think BMW will completely collapse because of the new electric PHEVs coming out? Because I've heard BMW are in serious trouble financially. Yes, BMW are in serious trouble financially. BMW currently employs 77,000 people in Germany in their factory area. That's a lot of jobs. Just think about that for a minute. 77,000 people, right? That's more than the population of my Portlaoise, Portarlington, Mount Mellick, and probably Carlow put together, all employed by one single company. So it's not going to go out of business for sure, but they do stand alone. BMW do kind of stand alone. They sell a lot of product. They sell a lot of automatic gearboxes and stuff outside their own company, but they do stand alone. They had the market cornered. ID3, what the hell is that BMW? The i8 and the i3, the two of them, they had it absolutely cornered. A good hybrid. They had a pure electric. They had the range extender one. They had the whole lot going on. And then the managing director just lost interest and just didn't want to do it. And he's gone off now to China somewhere. And they lost all their techie team to go with it. So they're building from scratch. We'll see. Mini's not going to save them. I tell you that. It's BMW Mini like. So a Mini's not going to save them. That electric Mini that they have, we all got very excited about, then found out the range was less than an e-Golf. Like it's very small. It's a very hard place to work. I'd hate to work there. I don't think they'll collapse. I don't think the German economy will allow someone like BMW, who used to be Messerschmitt in the Second World War, I don't think it'll allow them to collapse. But whether they can survive the current shift, the whole German car industry is in trouble. The current really rapid shift that's happening around the world to get away from diesel and petrol. And Europe seems to be still fascinated by it. Abdul says Chevrolet winded up from India and left their car owners high and dry as I own a 2011 Cruise. Chevrolet did that all over the world. Chevrolet left Ireland as well. They were here for a long time, then they disappeared. Then they came back under the guise of Fiat or Lancia Chevrolet, and then they went out of business again. So they're gone again now. So they did that all over the place. But Chevrolet parts, most of those parts come from GM Group, which is Opel. So if you really need any of those parts, contact the GM Group. E.T. Flyer, I'm in the US and was curious when you mentioned your upcoming time change. Lately it's become controversial here and may be changed in the future. What impacts does it have for you? Really, it is spring forward and winter back. So we go forward an hour in spring, which is coming up next. So at this time of the day, it's 5 to 3 now here, 5 to 3 in the PM. It'll be 5 to 4 when we change the time. Really, it doesn't really do anything. And we had a vote in the EU recently to get rid of it or keep it. And the vote seemed to be keep it here in Ireland. I would suggest we need to get rid of it. We should just stick to this time. We should just stick to summertime all the time, essentially. What happens is, really, we used to do it for the dark mornings, because in wintertime in Ireland, we get about 4 hours of daylight, real proper daylight. And in the morning, it can be pitch black when people are going to work and kids are going to school and all that sort of stuff. So what we did was, we pushed the hour back. So when you're getting up in the morning, it's 7 o'clock, but actually it's 8 o'clock daylight. We pushed that way forward. So it doesn't really do a whole lot, but it might come up. I wouldn't bother with it. I don't like the idea of it. I prefer to keep the summertime all year round, because then it's stable. Because that hour just messes you up. You get up in the middle of the night, like it's horrible. So I'd rather stay as I am. Ocean Froggy, Bob, who has missed the EV tide and who is the next Nokia? Actually, weirdly, the managing director of Volkswagen Group said he was afraid of becoming the next Nokia. He actually used that. It's come up a few times as it goes. The ones who missed out the worst have been BMW from a German perspective. Because they were ahead of it. They had it. They were there. They had everything at their feet. And then their managing director went, nah, I think this is just a fad. I think we should just invest in diesel all the time. Diesel. And then there was a bit of price fixing went on as well between Mercedes, BMW and Volkswagen Group, Audi mainly, where they were accused. Accusations were flung left, right and centre of them fixing their prices and doing stuff as well in the background. And then Volkswagen got caught with Dieselgate and had to pay out a huge amount of fines. And they're not finished paying those fines. They're not finished paying it out at all yet. There's still court cases going on about Dieselgate. So there is an element of German companies being the next Nokias if they're not very careful of how they approach things, because they expanded very quickly into China. Then the Chinese market just went and got really small, really tight, really fast. I can remember going to press conferences in 2015, 2014, 2013, and all of the talk was about the Chinese cars. All of the talk. We went to the launch of the Audi A6 All-Road, and at that was the Audi A8 Hybrid, which was almost 100% for the Chinese market and the American market. I drove it. I thought it was crap, but it was there, and that was way back. Like, so these car companies aren't just, they're not fast to change. They think they're right for a long time, but what's happened is the consumer has gone, I don't want that anymore. I want this now. And that's brilliant. That's what consumers are supposed to do. This is the power of your money. This is the power of everything you have in your hand, is your ability to go, no, I'm not buying that, I'm going to buy this. And if you don't have that, I'm going to buy something else. That's how you should work at all times. So the next Nokia that's coming up, well, you've got a few of them out there at the moment if they're not very, 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 very careful about how they proceed forward. Opel was very lucky to get bought out by PSA, but now PSA is the third biggest car maker on earth, which means there's a lot of duplications of jobs there. I mean, people who work in accounts for Opel work in accounts for Peugeot. You know what I mean? That's very easy for those two to be duplicated out. So it's very, very difficult to see who's going to fall. I don't think anyone's actually just going to fall off the face of the planet. We've lost a lot of them along the way. I think you'll see some of them being bought out. I think if China hadn't got this virus, I think we would have seen electric cars coming from China this year. There will be an invasion in the next couple of years of Chinese built, made and branded electric cars. I note that that Harris Group has now had the LDV brand is gone. That's a Chinese brand. They call it something else. I forget what it's called now, but they changed the name of it very recently. So there's an awful lot going on in the Chinese market you've got to be really careful of. And I think that you'll find that someone like one of the Volkswagen Group is going to find themselves in the back foot very quickly when Chinese launch a pile of electric cars over here, because they make most electric engines, a lot of the batteries, a lot of the technology, a lot of the mining goes on in China, you know, so a lot of stuff happening in China. Mark Turner Smith, the Seat Toledo Top-Spec 1 litre TSI 110 PS bargain money when the end of production was sold off by Seat UK dealers last year. Not a bad car, quite nice, was sheds loads of kit for the money. You're right, I kind of liked the Toledo. What was that other Seat one? There was the Audi A4. I can't remember what it was called now. That's terrible. Seat something or other. And it was basically an Audi A4 with a Seat badge in front. That was actually a pretty good car. You could get them for peanuts as well. The Butcher says the video paused there for 5 seconds. I didn't though. I may have paused for 5 seconds. I might have just stopped talking for 5 seconds. Who knows? We could be in the matrix of things. Cross 13 says no sign yet of ESB's 50 new super hubs with 4 plus 150 kilowatt rapid power, but Ionity is making progress on Kill North and Kill South on the N7 just before Naas. 4 rapids on both sides of the road. I've met people from ESB e-cars and they don't seem to know a lot about e-cars, can I just say, which is a bit of a troublesome thing to think about when you think of it right now, because it's a big company and it goes very, very slowly, and it's a semi-state body essentially, so they do whatever the hell they want to do, and then they just look after the pensions after that. So they're not really that interested in whether this works or doesn't work. They know it's coming, but they make money anyway. Like if I went away for a year here and closed the doors and tripped the switch in the hall so there's no power running in the house, I'd still owe the standing charge to ESB. Just for existing, you owe them money. So they make money anyway, whether they expand a network or not expand a network, they make money. That's just ESB, just how they are. But right about the Ionity one, it's shame Ionity, well I know it's actually very good that Ionity up the price, because it frees up the charges for the actual customers who pay money to be there. But it does reduce. I mean, when you have 5 or 6, like on my phone now for testing electric cars, I have 7 or 8 apps. Just 7 or 8 apps just to test cars. I never installed an app for any other car company ever, but now I need 7 or 8 of them just to run the cars. The only car company I've seen recently that required me to install an app was a BMW. My favourite car of the last 3 years, a BMW 330 diesel estate with black alloys and a 3-litre diesel under the bonnet. Beautiful machine to drive, but required me an app to use anything on it, essentially. I could stream by Bluetooth, but that was about as far as it would allow me to do without installing a BMW app, of which is not my car, so it doesn't work when I install it and try to set it up as a user. It says that number's registered to BMW Ireland, so I can't do it with it anyway. Edward Malone says, Alpha dealers in Ireland are awful. I was close to getting a Giulia, but they did everything not to sell it. Unfortunately, that is the way of the... Usually, you know when you see multi-franchise dealers where you see like Alpha, Opel, Peugeot, and it's all in one place, they're just going to sell you the car that gets them the best discount, really, because they get levels of discount from car companies. So they're just going to sell you the car that gives them the best return off it. So if they're getting a commission of €500 to sell one car to you and 200 to sell the other one, they're going to sell you one with 500. So that's Alfa Romeo, unfortunately, ends up being the bottom rung, because I'd imagine that their commission sales, or their washout sales, it'd be called, aren't very much. So my God, there's a lot of you watching. Click the like button if you wouldn't mind, it'd be brilliant. And you can also support the channel if you don't want to do the like button and the subscribe button, but you can support the channel by Patreon, PayPal, Super Chat, multiple ways, whatever you want. Just cold, hard cash will do as well. It's all good. Which will allow me to buy a new mic, which is what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to look up that podcaster mic that was recommended to me earlier on. For sure, look it up as soon as I finish here. Hoop 101. WHOOP 101. I'm answering questions from 20 to 3, by the way, so I'm not catching up with you, but I'm doing my best to catch up with you. So ask more questions, it's fine. We'll get through them all eventually. Hi Bob, keep up the good work. I will, thanks. Have 200-kilometre round trip to work. Is there any EV that could accommodate that without charging on the way home, or should I stick with my diesel, superb 2-litre diesel 1.6 Golf? Thanks, whatever it is. 200 kilometres round trip, yes, there are. Now, this will sort of depend on the weather as well, and I know that sounds like an awful thing to say, but if you take that a Kia e-Soul is supposed to go, that's a 64 kilowatt battery, it's supposed to go about 350 kilometers. But if you sit on a motorway at 120 kilometers an hour in the cold, you're not going to get that range. You just won't. When the battery's stone cold and everything's horrible outside and you're whopping along, you got the heaters all running, your little toasty bum on their heated seats, it just reduces the range the whole time. So the e-Soul should be able to do it. The e-Niro should be able to do it. Technically, the Nissan Leaf 64 kilowatt should be able to do it, but I very much doubt it. Definitely the Model 3 or the Model S from Tesla would be able to do it handy enough. You'll have to charge to get home, but you won't have to charge on the way up or back. But after that, not really. The smaller cars, no. The Hyundai Kona might, but it's fairly small. They'll be able to do the range, but it'd be pretty small. You're on the cusp of electric range is the problem with that. Later on in the year, Volkswagen will be bringing out an 82 kilowatt battery, 84, 82. I have to look at my notes, which is meant to be a 500 kilometer range battery. Now, how believable the 500 kilometers is another story entirely, but that will be able to do that range definitely around that distance. But 200 kilometers round trip is doable in summer for sure. Wintertime, you're just going to be fairly close to the mark. Alan Burke, love the Cadillac Eldorado with the fins. Yep. You answer someone's question because that's come out of absolutely nowhere. But I know what you're talking about. The Eldorado is gorgeous with the fins in the back. Run on was that a 6.3 litre V8? Was under that bonnet. Did about 10 miles per gallon. Lovely car, but God big. Mini Eggs has joined us, and that was actually Mini Eggs, by the way. Hi Bob, just back in from a refreshing walk in the rain and a Sunday roast. Why does VW 4Motion use so much more fuel when it runs on two-wheel drive most of the time? It's the extra weight, believe it or not. So whether you run on 2 or 4-wheel drive, all of the gubbins has to be there to run the 4-wheel drive. So you actually have to connect the drive shaft up to the other wheels as well, which adds an extra, we'll say about 150 kilos to the car, right? Now 100 kilos is quite a chunky human being. You know, that's a big person. I'm 92 kgs now and I'm well overweight. I'd normally be 85. So, you can imagine 100 kg is quite heavy, so 120, 130 kgs for that extra bit going down to the back wheels, it requires, now that's the entire system, not just drive shaft. That includes the differential locks and things that are on the back as well to make sure it all runs in 4-wheel drive. So plus the car is electronically driven 4-wheel drive, so it shifts the power whenever it feels like it needs to shift the power. So a lot of the time it's actually running in 4 or 2 to 4-wheel drive. It's flicking it on and off, you just don't notice it's doing it. So it does require more power. I would buy something like a Skoda Kodiaq that you can get in 4-wheel drive as a 2-wheel drive. No one uses 4-wheel drive, and it's of no benefit to you in the snow, believe it or not. Not really. If the car is a BMW rear-wheel drive and you put it in 4-wheel drive, yes it is. But if it's a front-wheel drive, you're probably better off just sticking with front-wheel drive in the snow. Ask rally drivers. They tend to go front-wheel drive in the snow. And to put on really skinny tyres, because the skinny tyres cuts the snow down the middle. So now, there's a piece of information you may never have known. Sorry, I'm wasting time when I'm trying to go back up the list of questions. See, what happens is I'm scrolling, and it's not refreshing the bottom of the screen. So when I reach the bottom of the screen, it refreshes, and then it jumps to the last question. So it absolutely skips everybody. So I've always tried to find ways to stop it doing, but it doesn't. Hoop 101, that says answering questions. New EV in the market. There you are. Cross answer that question as well. Any EV in the market for the Smart 42 EQ will handle that, no bother. It will be no bother in 6 months' time when you've owned it. You'll get used to it. At the very beginning, you'll find it a bit difficult to go from filling up like once or twice a week to having to charge the car every day, you know. But you'll have no problem. It'll work. It'll work for you. Just bear it in mind that it takes a bit of adjustment in your head to get there. RTD Game says, Bob, I'm a 13-year-old wanting to do motor journalism. When I get older, what do you? Okay, what do I do? What did you do? Oh, become a motor journalist, and I'm 13. I really want to be one. So I always loved cars from day one, from childhood, from very young. I was mental into cars, and I don't mean I had all the books and I learned all the engines and learned all that stuff. I just loved the look of the things, the freedom they gave, the ability to just get in and go anywhere. So that was the very first thing. I like cars. And if you don't really like cars, motoring journalism is a crap job to have, because you are just swarmed with them all the time. And by that, it's great to have an old free car here and there and have this and that, and it's great to have these trips and things. But if you're not into cars, it will drive you nuts having to go and change the car the whole time and never settle into a thing. You've always got something in the glove box. So how to get there is, first of all, build up a repertoire. Understand what a car is for, what it does. Is it expensive? Is it cheap? How you get there. Make arrangements. Start writing. Understand what it means to structure a sentence. Get your grammar correct. Learn to spell. Learn another language. It's really handy. I learned a fair bit of German, or a little bit of German here and there. It really stands to me when I go to Germany and talk to people. I don't mean I can hold a whole conversation with them, but it disarms them when you say something in German. You know, just understand your product. You're the product. You're the journalist. You have to understand what they want, and they have to understand what you want. Tell the truth is the other part. Really, honestly, tell the truth and people will listen. If you don't tell the truth, it's just lies, and you're just adding to the fake news out there. So really follow it. Just follow it through. You're young enough to keep on going. Get going at it. Don't stop. Write about sports. Start a blog. Start a website. Start a YouTube channel. Start talking about cars. Learning how to make videos. All that sort of stuff is all going to stand to you in the future. It's not hard to do, by the way. Mark Turner Smith says, go for it, Bob. Tosspec 159 GTV can stare at this beauty when I'm working or broken on the drive. It is an amazing car. Anthony Morrissey, Bob, would there be any advantage to getting a Mark 8 Golf GTE over a Mark 8 Golf 2-litre TDI? No. Advantage? How do you mean advantage? The 2-litre TDI will do better MPG over long distance. So if you're driving every day on a motorway and you're doing 120 kilometers an hour and you don't want to think about it, just click the cruise control on and just do that. Then the 2-litre TDI is what you want to do. If you're determined enough, a GTE, when you plug them in every day, will save you a bit of money. But generally speaking, as I've heard Cross say before, if you can make a plug-in hybrid work at its optimum efficiency, you probably should have bought an electric car anyway. There's no real point in buying a PHEV and then having to plug it in your home, drive to work, plug it in and work, drive to home, plug it in at home. You're plugging it in every bleeding day, 2 or 3 times a day. It's just drive you bananas through that sort of stuff. So just buy an electric car if that's the best way out of that one. But there's no real advantage over one over the other than long distance fuel economy, big thing. Edward Malone is a very generous person, put in some money there into Super Chat. It says, any meetups planned, Bob? None planned, but I'm definitely going to have to do a meetup for the 10th anniversary of this channel. So we're going to do a big one of that. That should be somewhere. I think I started this channel in the summertime in 2010. I'd have to look at the exact date, but I think it was summertime in 2010 I started, so I'll have to do something on the 10th anniversary of this, and we'll do something on a Sunday as well. So we have a meetup and a cruise or something. Will we do a cruise? Do they do them anymore? Or are they allowed to do that anymore? But we'll do some sort of cruise or other. Paul O'Connor, what's your opinion on car detailing, paint correction and coating, the €2,000 type? It's deadly. If you're going to hold on to a car for a long period of time, it's definitely no harm to do that sort of stuff. If you've spent $100,000 on buying yourself a Porsche, well then, and you're not spending $2,000 to paint work, yeah, you might as well. But for an older car, you can do a lot of work on your own. If you're polishing the car from brand new, when you buy a brand new car today, go into Halfords, go into your local car shop and buy yourself some Auto Glim stuff or some Maguire's wax, or Maguire, or whatever, it's the American crowd, and buy some good, decent wax and polish. You don't necessarily need a clay bar and that sort of stuff when it's brand new. If you start polishing that car from new at the very beginning, it'll hold itself so well together. That really does help and condition the paintwork over time. You can buy polish for windscreens. Just if you're polishing a windscreen, make sure you use windscreen polish and not polish that you use on the car, because it messes up the windscreen wipers. But for detailing wise, you can get guys to do detailing for you. There's a good number of them out there that do really good jobs, but just bear in mind, get the guy who's highly recommended. Everybody can do detailing, an idiot can walk into Halfords and buy a pile of stuff that says they're able to do detailing. It's a whole different ballgame when you actually see it done. So be aware that it's worth spending money on if you're going to hold on to the car and you want to keep it forever. Stone chips and stuff can be detailed out. You'd be surprised what they can do. Really good job. Paul Hickey says, just check, done deal. Oh my god, I've changed the price of Alfa 159 forever. Just check, done deal. Alfa Romeo 159 Sportwagon 2.4 GTDM Lusso in dark blue for €3,000. Oh my god, it would be the best €3,000 I've ever spent if it was in good shape. But you would have to, now look, if I was going to buy one of those Alfa Romeos, I would bring a jack and a pair of overalls and a shed load of tools with me, and I would spend 2 hours inspecting that car, because when they go wrong, oh boys, you'll be welding bits into that car for the rest of your life with the smallest bit of rust on the thing. They just go catastrophically wrong. Engines are pretty bulletproof, but once the rust gets into those kind of older, under the wheel arches, in behind the suspension hubs, under the bonnet and that sort of stuff, man, the frustration you'll find one day when you come out and your suspensions come up through your bonnet, like, it's so rusted out of it already, and it doesn't take very long to set in. Italian cars have always been that way. Their engines are fairly bulletproof, but they do get ragged. They are driven very hard. Anyone who buys an Alfa Romeo, it's one of those cars, you make a decision to buy an Alfa Romeo. It's not a car you kind of go down to shop and go, nah, just buy that one. No, you'll make a decision. It's going to be a big decision for you to make as well. It's a tough one, so people who buy an Alfa Romeo tend to know what you're talking about. Patrick Duffy is a very generous person there. Sent me money by PayPal. You're very kind. That's the same Patrick Duffy I met the other day as well. Patrick's a very, very nice guy. Making a little film with him. E.T. Flyer, 10 years as autumn. I know, it's scary, isn't it? You think the channel will have 2 million subscribers at this stage, but it doesn't. It has 22 million people have watched the videos. 45,000 subscribers. So it'll be 50,000, I think, by summer, I hope, if it keeps going. And that changes some sort of metrics or something, I've been told, in YouTube when you reach over 50,000 subscribers. See how that goes. I never did this for the subscriber part of the thing. I only ever did it just to get the message out there, And now I get recognised in the street and stuff. It's kind of cool. Ocean Froggy, Bob, do you think folk with diesels should hang on to them until they die or get rid of them fast before they fall off the depreciation cliff edge, as EVs make second-hand diesels unsellable? Okay, that's a kind of multifaceted question. Are we going to get rid of ICE diesel engines and petrol engines entirely? No, probably not for a very long time. There's so many things that diesel and petrol engines do that we just cannot, in the near future or in the next decade, really replace. There is things we can do to start replacing them or to help them or to aid them, but there's just bits we can't do. Now, I'm not talking about Ireland here, I'm talking about the general world out there at the moment. The depreciation thing, cars are worth what someone will pay for them, right? There's a lot of people out there who will never change to electric. There's people out there right now who don't have a modern diesel. People out there right now who are driving a 2002 or a 2000, ancient diesel or petrol car. People driving vintage and classics. These cars they'll only depreciate if people don't want them anymore. That's the big difference. So I don't think we're going to see a point where we need to just dump the diesel. What do we do with them? That's really bad for the environment. We have to recycle them, we have to drain them, we have to recycle the oil, drain out the fuel. They stand in a scrapyard for months and months and months until someone can take them. Scrap metal and all. It's an awful job to get rid of a car. So really we should hold on to them until they die, or we should hold on to them until we trade them in and sell them on, or they'll be scrapped. The dealer will take the hit on them, and you get into the car you need, not the car you think you need. That's the big difference. A lot of people think they need an electric car, when in actual fact we're only at the beginning of electric cars. We're only getting started, guys. Long way to go with electric cars yet. In 10 years time we'll be having a whole different ball game of a question about them again, and I really think we could see a point in the future where we've made a terrible decision. If we jump at them and we all go electric all of a sudden, I think we could be going on the route we did with diesel as well. Don't forget, we all went diesel back there in 2008, and the Green Party went, good lads for making very good decisions on your low CO2 emission cars. Now look at them. Yeah, that was a great decision back then, wasn't it? Here, Braz says, poor diesels, they don't deserve to die. They don't, in fairness to them. They're very clean now compared to what they were 10 years ago. They do a particular kind of job as well, which is a very, very important job that diesel does, which is very high mileage, very high torque, and the ability to be able to cruise at very high speeds at very low output. So, a diesel can get 50, 60, 70 miles to the gallon all day sitting on a motorway at 120 kilometers an hour. Electrics can't get anywhere near that. Between aerodynamics and outside temperature, ambient temperature and all that sort of stuff, they can be a very different prospect. John Carney's here. Hi Bob, how are all the Volkswagen gearboxes with 6 speeds suitable for learner drivers? I find 5 speed very pushy around the sharp corners and have to go back to first to avoid coasting for golf. Volkswagen gearbox with 6 speeds suitable for learner. Well, that's just a ratio. So 6 speeds is just the way they've altered the ratio. So first becomes nearly like taking off in second in a weird sort of way with the 6 speeds. 5 speed has what would be turning in some parts of the industry called a rush gearbox. So when you put it in first, the car will anti-stall and will immediately go forward. So if you take your foot off the clutch in first without touching the accelerator pedal, the car will just roll away in first. Most cars have an anti-stall device like that as well. So if a learner driver is turning a corner and is rolling up to a roundabout, second gear, indicator on, and they leave the clutch out, the car will lurch forward in second and keep on. It'll anti-stall and keep on running. 6 speed made no difference to that at all, other than the cruise ratio at top speeds. So up at 100 kilometers an hour, the revs would drop by about 200, 300 RPM, give you better fuel economy. Funny enough, the 6 speed gearbox is lighter than the 5 speed gearbox. Weirdly, I'm not sure how that happens, but it is a little bit. For learner drivers, really the problem is trying to figure out the anti-stall device that's in Volkswagen, particularly pronounced in Volkswagen Group cars, also called run-on. So if you try it out yourself, anybody can try this with their own car. Put your car in first, don't touch the accelerator pedal, just start to lift off the clutch till you feel the bite, and you'll feel the car will just take off on its own, no accelerator pedal involved, and if you leave the clutch out, it will continue to accelerate. It's a anti-stall system in it, but it actually can really freak people out when they're driving around corners. Any sort of clutch action on it, so it's kind of weird. Jay Redmond says R.I.P. Caroline Flack. Yes, I didn't watch the show and I don't know the girl at all. but it seems that a presenter of Love Island called Caroline Flack committed suicide recently in her flat the other day, yesterday or the day before. It's a difficult thing when an adult does it, particularly when a famous adult does it, because it tends to be held up as if the press did something to her, or whatever. But actually, it's a lot to do with people's mental ability to be able to survive things that's been pushed on them or at them. People in the public eye tend to be pushed at things more often as people try to find things wrong with them. So it can be very difficult for someone, but it certainly, that's one of those people. She was very pretty, and of course people latch on to that kind of young prettiness and bubbly and singing and dancing and stuff. But she was having some court case trouble. She was having some problems, and the press were hounding her, as the press do in the UK. I find the press in England to be very pushy, a very, very different animal over there entirely, and they'll hound you to your grave. They've done that a few times. So they definitely went after Caroline Flack for a long time, and the result of that was she took her own life. And it's something we need to talk about openly and honestly with everybody, is to talk about your feelings and your abilities, your emotions, and how they build up among you, and how you feel about people around you, and what you do to cope with that. Most people turn inwards and look at themselves and start to wonder about the rest of the world, and then they look at Facebook or YouTube or something and see the best life in the world, and they're not having it, when in actual fact everybody has problems. Every single day everybody has problems, and they don't talk about them. They don't say them openly. I've had loads of problems over the last 6-8 months. I've had hundreds of things, and I've talked about them here on this channel, but this is like cathartic stuff. You sit here and you just talk to the screen, and you guys listen, and that's my version of it. So but you need to get these things out in the open and talk about them. And that's the best advice I can give you, is to talk to people around you. Whatever happens, somebody said it recently, Keanu Reeves said it recently. He says, I don't know what happens after death, but those who love you will miss you. So that's probably good advice. Andy McAfee, with the announced deadlines, etc., is there really a need this far down the ice road to justify building new filling stations at all? In 30 years' time, if EVs have worked, those left with ICE classics. That's true, but I don't believe we're going to go with a ban of all fossil fuel engined cars in 2030. Let me explain. So our ban, the UK ban is slightly different, but our ban in Ireland was only on the straight diesels and straight petrols. It did not include hybrids, PHEVs, any of those cars that run an ICE engine with it. So the problem is, if we're not going to ban them, well, then all car companies just put in batteries and call themselves mild hybrids, and you're past the ban straight away. So you got a reprieve, and now we're going to have a change of government down here as well. And God knows what, if it's Sinn Féin, supposing we have another election and Sinn Féin win by a landslide, they field another 45, 50 candidates, and they get a majority government, and it's Sinn Féin. Who knows what they're going to do? God knows. They might just change all the rule book and go, no, forget it. Let's just get rid of all the EU6s and everything else engine-wise. It's just all drive V8s. So we don't know really what's going to happen. The petrol stations that are being built now are few and far between, but a lot of them are just updates. They're people who already own a petrol station are building another petrol station up the road. There is 10 years, 12 years, 15 years of good petrol and diesel sales over the next while, and most petrol stations make almost all their money from coffee and tea anyway. Cross 13, if you have the right card, you can charge at an Ionity for as little as 29 cents per kilowatt. Yeah, that's what I mean. So Ionity is not, like, it depends on what way you've worked out your system at Ionity. They used to do a flat fee of €8 for a charge, no matter how much electricity you want. If you wanted 10% of your battery or 70% of your battery, it was €8. Now it's 71 cents per kilowatt hour if you don't sign up with Ionity, or you don't own an Audi or something. The Audi Volkswagen Group have done a deal there as well. It can be very cheap. On the other hand, it's cheaper than, if you sign up properly, it's cheaper than ESB. Michael or Mihal Healy says, hey Bob, no charger in the big new Maxall outside Ennis. Asked the guy at the counter, and they said they were denied planning for the charger when they built the place. May not be true, but if it is, yikes. Well, problem is, you've got Board Planola and you've got planning authorities who are like dinosaurs in the background, and possibly don't give planning permission for electric charge points. And if they don't, you'd have to question why not, because it's a commercially available thing across Europe. So, it's a commercial interest. So you'd hardly say no to a planning permission because someone can make money out of it. I think the future of public charging is actually a kind of a weird place. I'm not sure we need as many public chargers as people keep telling us we need. We need them in the right places is the biggest issue. They have to be where we need them. Like, I don't need a charge point. Supposing if I took an e-Niro or an e-Soul, I always take them because I know the range and I've used them quite regularly, and a 64 kilowatt battery in them. So if I got an e-Soul right now, I could drive to Limerick and back on a single charge and not need a charge. So I don't need a charger between me and Limerick. But if you were coming from Dublin and going to Limerick, you could probably need a charger here in Portlaoise, and there is one. Right? Because that's halfway. You're kind of halfway between the two. So even if you start off with very little charge, you could probably get most of the way there and not need a charge, or at least most of the way back and not need a charge. So chargers are just where we need them rather than more of them. Now, we do need more of them in the west part of the country. Cork certainly needs a few. Galway needs a few more. We need to have more of them where they already are. So Portlaoise has one 22 kilowatt charger uptown. We could do with 4 of them. We could do with 2 fast chargers in the town. We could do with 10 or 15 7.5 kilowatt chargers. That's where we need to invest our money in if we're going to do new ones. I don't think we need a lot more of them in more places. They don't have to be everywhere, but it'd be nice to have them in the town centre and have enough of them. Like, if you go down to Athlone right now, and I know because I've spoken at Athlone recently, the Sheraton Hotel has 2 chargers in the car park underneath, but it has 300 spaces or something. There's only 2 chargers in it, and then there's no real public outside where I need them charge points. We haven't got enough of them in car parks when you pull up. So that's a big problem, Michal. But I'm not too sure we actually need more chargers. Johnny Dub, Bob, something you said at the seminar stuck with me. Pavilions SC are installing 5 special case charge spaces per parking level instead of loads of them. No outside the box thinking. I see, this is the problem. We don't need special charge spaces if there's enough charge points. If we keep making special green spaces for charge points, well, then you might as well make more disabled spaces. Like, this is the problem as well. When you create family spaces, the bigger, wider space, so you get prams in the boot and stuff, everybody parks in them. Everyone. Old ones, young ones, people don't care, they pull up. Then you get people pull into the disabled spots because they're closest to the door. Electric charge points is the same. When there's no space left in the entire car park for anyone to park, and they see 2 charge points over there that are empty, they're going to park in them. You're going to have a car, the ICE engine car, is going to park there. So instead of creating these special designated areas for charging, just put chargers everywhere. Just put 7.5 kilowatt chargers at every car park space, and then anybody can use them, but you'll always have a space. So whatever space is left in the car park, you've got the whole car park to choose from. You'll be able to charge at it every single time. It's really straightforward, not hard, but it just requires this switch in thinking. Instead of thinking all the time about making these special events, these are special cars that need a special space. They're not special cars, they're just cars that run on different fuel. It's not even different fuel, it's just electricity. Same as that kettle boiling over there right now. It's the kettle boiling because my wife's going to make me coffee, I think. Is it half time? We've only half an hour left. Anyway, my God, I'm 45 minutes behind in questions. Sorry, I'll catch up though. Ocean Froggy. Yeah, the Leaf has done more to put folk off the idea of BEVs than competitions, but they had a head start and blew it with their hideous range. Amazed they sell so well when they cause such inconvenience. It is a problem for Nissan, and they kind of did it on their own. They were a bit early out of the blocks with the 120 kilowatt or 120 kilometre range original Nissan Leaf, and it was 120 kilometers downhill with a bit of a tailwind, right? That's you had to have all of the stars had to align, you had to throw the bones in the right place, and everything had to work out for you, to do all that to make it do the 120 kilometers. Realistically, a Nissan Leaf was able to do maybe 80 if you were sitting on a motorway doing any sort of 100 kilometers an hour. So their second generation Nissan Leaf was a bit better on the range front, but looked the same. And then they had this current generation one that came out there in 17, was it, started? but it didn't have active cooling or active heating for that matter. So range isn't good enough on it, and it's not able to cool itself down after a charge up, so range is affected, and of course battery life is affected then because it overheats and it has to cut in the kind of air cooling system. It's just this, it's a bit of a mess thing. So they had such a good head start, but just kind of failed on the business front of stuff to get it done properly, and it was kind of disappointing really, because I really had great intentions for Nissan to continue on, but yet they're second-hand cars. If you can make the mileage work, second-hand would be okay. Johnny Dub, insurance companies, you see, my wife made me coffee. Look at that, hands in the air like you just don't care. She made me coffee. I love it. It's brilliant. And we've got a half an hour left, so get your questions in. You can also support the channel by donating money by PayPal, Patreon, and so on. I don't thank my patrons as much as I should. I'm really sorry. I'm really crap at Patreon, but it's just I don't remember it until I'm there, until I'm looking at it. But it's really good. John Coleman is another generous donator who generously donates quite regularly. Thank you very much, John. You're very kind. And I love all the donations. They're so good. But I'm going to look up that. I have to remember the name of that Road Podcaster mic. I'm going to look that up. Johnny Dub says insurance companies won't say anything about mass produced won't be classed as classic. Insurance companies say anything about mass produced won't be classed as classic. True, yes. A classic is by age. So a classic collectible car in the future is the car that survives, right? If people mind it for long enough and it survives, it'll do okay, and it'll be a classic. If you look at what's on the road now as classic cars like Morris Minors and Vauxhall Vivas and stuff, they just survived. They weren't particularly brilliant of their time, but they just managed to get through it. So those cars survive, and when they survive, we buy them and we keep them. And the same will apply to cars of the future. So whatever survives is going to be there. But when it comes to insurance companies don't care squat about you, your car, or anything else. They think of one single word in the whole dictionary, which is risk. How much of a risk you pose to them, how much of a risk your car combined with you pose to them. And the second word they think about is profit. They have to finance this insurance system. So when you crash, you have to be insured up to like €1 million. Could be any number between the two, so, but they have to weigh off of the fact of you crashing through the front of a shopping centre and mowing down 10 people, and they're going to have to pay out that insurance as just as quick as you hitting a wall and injuring nobody. So insurance is a weird system, but they are run rampant in this country, and there's not a single governmental party or any sort of policy that's happening out there to help you, the consumer, and me, the consumer, because I pay insurance as well like everybody else. Annie McAfee says insurance companies are nothing more than a license to print money in the Republic of Ireland. It's scary to see how different it is up the road. This is very true. The insurance in Northern Ireland, or in the UK in general, is a lot more affordable than the insurance in Ireland, and it seems to be a lot less subject to variances. So I could be quoted tomorrow €1,000 from an insurance company, but ring them back later on in the day, it's €300. It just makes no sense. They just seem to pluck a number out of the air and go, that's how much it is. Go on, off you go, enjoy yourself. I like brokers. A lot of brokers are pretty good. They genuinely want your business. Anyway, V-Dub says, good man, Bob. Thanks very much. What's new on the styling on a new VW Golf? What's your view on the styling? I'm not overawed by it. The new VW Golf is not new, really. It's got a new front, but the side profile is Golf 7, like 100%. And the tail end. The interior is quite nice, a little touch plasticky, but quite nice inside. They've thought about manual buttons and physical things to press and twist, so that's pretty good. But the exterior does bother me somewhat. Even when I look at the thumbnail of the review I did of the car when I was in Portugal. Was it Portugal? I forget. Wherever I was testing that car. Even the thumbnail, I look at it and go, God, the front of that car is a bit weird. It is a little bit weird. I'm not sure whether I like it or not. I'd have to drive it here. I haven't driven it in Ireland. I'd have to see it on a wet Tuesday in the arse end of Dublin. You know what I mean? Andy McAfee says 170 watching, 180 watching right now. So it's gone up by 10. But that was 14:58. I don't know what time it is now. 15:36. So we're way behind you. Byron said, no, Byron's talking to someone else. PSA in 2017-ish announced that they only had 3 or 4 months operating capital left and were bailed out by the French government, and they now have bought out Opel. A lot of big moves going on. Now, what happened there was PSA That's actually a pretty interesting story because PSA were running out of money. They were running out of everything because their sales had dropped. The French economy supports PSA Group. Peugeot and Citroën don't really sell a gigantic amount of cars outside of those countries. They're popular in places, weird places like Turkey and sort of Middle East and some parts of North Africa kind of support some of the Peugeot brand. But generally speaking, most of their sales happen through France. In 2015, 2016, 2017, the French government, the French country wasn't doing so well. People weren't buying cars. Peugeot Citroën started to run out of cash. They complained to the government to run out of cash. The government bailed them out, but at the same time as bailing them out, Peugeot Citroën Alliance dumped 33,000 jobs or so. Quite a chunk of people were dropped off the face of the earth. And at the same time, Opel were in deep doo-doo and needed a bailout. And what Peugeot cleverly did was, or PSA cleverly did was, they took the French bailout for themselves and bought Opel out of it. That's how well they did out of that. So they bought Opel at the same time, and it just dumped jobs out of Opel as well. Any duplications of jobs were dumped out of Opel. So to their downfall was going to be their turn up as well. So they did well. Seat XEO, everybody answered. Sorry, I'm so far behind. It was the Seat XEO was the thing. It was the Audi A4 with a different brand. That was actually a pretty good car. Very small back seat, but it was a very good car. LDV has gone to SIAC motor, but it's not called SIAC now. They're calling it something else. That'll bother me now till I find out what the name of that is. Mark Turner Smith says Seat XEO was very good reproduction of the Audi A4 210 PS 2-litre TSI rare version particularly. It was a great car. MG SIAC 2 running GM ICE blocks and their own EV, that's correct. Model 3 EPA range is 530 kilometres. WLTP is 560 kilometres in any weather above -10 at 130 kilometres an hour. It would be do 200 kilometres commute twice before charging. You see, that's what I'm saying to you, is that you've got this very high range from Tesla, and Tesla do active cooling and heating, so the battery's heated up before you go. Unlike a lot of the cheaper ones like Nissan, who don't do any cooling or heating on the battery at all, it is the temperature it is. I think the e-Golf had suffered from that same problem, but I think they had active heating when it was plugged in or something. Do I have an imposter, says Mini Eggs? No, I don't think so. Brian McIntyre, hi Bob, 2003 Accord Estate having power boot electric problems. Do you know anyone good with car electrics? What's the problem? It's not opening or closing. So if your power boot electric, if you're opening the boot and you're releasing the catch, so when you press the boot on the back, what happens is you create a switch which activates the motors that opens the boot. To close the boot, you press the button and you're activating the motor. So really the only things that can be wrong with it is the switch, the actual switch that you're pressing on the boot to open the boot. But if the remote control trigger release still opens the boot, but the switch on the back of the boot doesn't, then it's the switch on the back of the boot. You could fix that yourself. It's 2 screws and a piece of rubber holding it on, right? Or you take off the innards of the inside of the boot, and underneath that will be the switch. Second problem it could be is if it's not opening, but you're hearing a noise, so you hear a motor running, but nothing's happening. Then the motor itself is running on the inside. You may have a belt off. There's belts that run that sort of system that opens and closes them. It pushes the hydraulics on. These are fairly straightforward ones to fix, and mechanical things like that, but any mechanic would work with that kind of power boot thing. Even I'd have a swing at that. I don't do motor electrics unless you're pressing all of the buttons and there's no noise. Then it's the motor. It's the motor inside, and you just buy a new one. Most things with cars are really straightforward. When something goes wrong, it's actually really straightforward to figure out what it is. You just got to think logically as to what happens, cause and effect, what happens and what's the result of it. And when you're fixing something, so you're changing out the motor in the tailgate or under the roof, whatever it is, generally speaking, when you're taking it apart, if you take it apart in the order, you're going to do that in reverse to fix it. It's really straightforward. Like taking on a motor is just taking off all the screws, disconnecting the electrics, unplugging, taking it down and putting the other one back in and just doing the reverse of what you just did a second ago. 99% of the time it's easy. And if you get a Haynes manual, you'll be able to figure it out on your own. Ocean Froggy knows after another question. Channel shows as of July 27th. July the 27th, 2010. July the 27th, 2020 is what day? Just a thought. February, March, April, May, June, July 27th is a bloody Monday. Right, put in your calendars, July the 26th, 2020, and we'll see if we can arrange a meet-up, big meet-up with lots of people. We do something really clever. We might hook up with some other massive car show that'll be on in July. There's always one every Sunday in July. There's something on. Surely we'd find something. Anyway, Ocean Froggy says Leaf's lack of BMS, lack of battery heating and cooling means that it take forever to charge in the winter on a rapid charger, hitting the ESB €5 overstay fee multiple times. Disaster. And especially because there's so many Leafs sold, because it used to be free to charge at the charge points. So lots of people bought a Leaf and would charge the thing rapidly, 6 times a day. I met a taxi driver here in the town used to charge his car 6 times a day, a Nissan Leaf. But now, of course, it's gone. That's finished. That means the charge point's empty all the time. It's great. Annie McAfee says, hi Flavin, my 2001 Octavia TDI isn't ancient, it's a Euro 3. Euro 3, wow, don't stand behind that making big lungfuls of whatever's going on in the back of it. Because it slips, you see. Sorry. So when something's Euro 6 for a number of years, it met the conditions of Euro 6 when it was built. In 10 years, it's not necessarily Euro 6 no more. It might have slipped as the filters get all blocked and doesn't work anymore. Anyways, it's my 2 pence. Mark Turner Smith, yeah, loads of great fuss in the press by VW on their new Mark 8 Golf GTD being so super, super, super clean. I wonder why, really. Everybody's behind the ball. BMW says that electric cars are crap. Why? Because BMW doesn't have any electric cars. And Volkswagen are tentatively kind of saying, there's a good place for diesel in the future. It's definitely going to be around. But they're softly doing it because they're about to start ramping up their ID3 and ID4, which will be coming as well. And of course, Skoda just announced the other day the Enya, the Enyq or something, but it's pronounced Enya, as in sail away, that one, her Enya, which is Irish connection. So they announced that as well, and there's so much going on in that market that they're hesitant to take off the pressure off the diesel and petrol because they see a future in it. And I don't blame them. I see a future in diesel and petrol as well. I'm driving a diesel. I've driven a diesel the last 3 or 4 weeks and they've been absolutely outstanding mileage, and the ability to be able to go from here to there and back again as many times as you like without having to put fuel in it is fantastic. And when you need to put fuel in, it takes 2 minutes. Psst, boom, off you go. It's deadly. But electric cars are coming. It just takes a little bit of a changeover, that's all. Byron is quoting numbers of people. 185 at 3:30. I don't know what time you are now. 4:45 now. Still 173 is watching at this 1 second. It's very good. Great response today, as usual. You're all here as usual. This is great. This will go out as a podcast, of course, next Sunday as well. I do strip the audio off this. I put a little sneaky top and tail on the podcast version of it, so you hear a different aspect. And I'm wondering if people want an actual podcast, which is not this interactive chat thing from live. So I could do not necessarily a motoring podcast, but sort of a podcast about stuff and put it up there too. We can do that too. I have plenty of time. Podbean are pretty good. They don't complain when you keep putting up like 2.5 hours of stuff. Mark Turner Smith says suicide is a very sad thing. I lost a cycling club friend to that in December 2019. Not entirely sure the reasons, as no note for the family, marriage breakup and cycling injuries not helped. So sad. Well, it's hard to rationalise it in your head as to why someone would do it. It's very, especially when they don't tell you why they did it. You just do it and it's over and there's nothing left for you to deal with. So it can be often very hard to rationalise that, internalise it for humans. But you got to look at your own situations. You got to look at who you are and who you want to be, and always move forward. Like everything's in the future. The past is gone. You can do nothing about the decisions you made 10 minutes ago. You can't do anything with that information. The past just has to, you just got to learn from that, not make the same mistake twice. I'm here because of the mistakes I made. I am the person I am because I said yes to pretty much everything I've ever done. And I made a pile of mistakes along the way. But then you learn from those mistakes. You get better and better and bigger and faster. And then you get to an age where it's like, well, life is fairly okay, isn't it? Like, there just comes a point in your life where it's like, the struggle isn't as struggly as it used to be. I'm not broke the whole time, or I'm not struggling to try and find a place to live and not being turfed out by a landlord, or, you know what I mean? you just learn to deal with stuff over time. So it can be a difficult place for anybody to be, but really, if people are doing it around you, it's the same exists for them. Sometimes it's just they just don't see another way. They just don't see anything else, and I always see another way. There's always another way to do everything. There's always another day. The sun will rise tomorrow. The earth will continue to turn. People will still build houses. People will still complain about taxes. People will still complain. That's life. That's been always the same way, you know. It's weird. But anyway, Hitster says, don't forget that eventually you will pay £18 per minute to get 20p kilowatt at Ionity. That bumps the net price up a lot. Don't know what that means. 18 cents per minute. Whatever it is. Anyway. We are not in control of the price of electricity. We are not in control of the price of petrol and diesel either, though, because that just varies up and down. We just got used to it. We got used to it going up and coming down, and going up and coming down. We got used to that, and electricity would do the same thing. The difference is electricity affects everybody. Every house is electrical. Every one of the houses I'm surrounded here runs on gas boilers and electricity. So electricity is a very difficult thing. If the price of electricity rises, it affects the whole country, not just drivers, not just people who have electric cars. So there is a problem with that end of it. But other than that, we are not in control of that electricity. You can somewhat control it or offset it with the use of solar panels, with the use of wind farms, or putting up your own sort of windmill in the backyard. You need planning permission for that. But you can definitely do it with solar panels and installing battery systems in your house and trying to recoup the electricity back out, natural electricity. I foresee a point somewhere in the future where we'll all start to really think about being off-grid and trying to generate our own systems, but I do think it's a long way off where we get to that point. We'd need help. It's very expensive to do that sort of stuff. Paul Kinsler, hi Bob, saw the new Kuga yesterday in Finley's Ford and was surprised by how much I liked it. Is the hybrid with the Atkinson cycle engine as official as claimed? It was a worth a look. Nothing is ever as efficient as they claim it to be, because drivers mess that up instantly as soon as someone drives a car. Some people are very harsh drivers, some people are very smooth drivers, and so it always kind of screws it up. Atkinson cycle engines are actually pretty good. Under certain circumstances, they do very, very well on their return for the amount of energy that's going in. So if you look at the actual size of the energy used to make the car run, they're actually pretty efficient. And if you like the Kuga, then for sure, I wouldn't be the greatest fan of how it looks, but if you like it, definitely it's worth investigating because it's pretty clever. But Ford are one of those companies that are, you know, trying to figure themselves out. Ford Ireland don't exist in the same way they used to recently. They just did the Mustang thing in England the other day, and well, I was listening to a lot of motoring journalists complaining an awful lot about the entire event and about the car itself and what it was like. So that was off record. The reviews don't seem to reflect it as much, but I don't know whether they've got a proper future to go with it. I'd like to see Ford survive, but not on the way they currently are operating. I'm not too sure. Mark Turner Smith, yes, they are now recognising the 18 plus year old car as modern classic. Many warm hot hatches like Saxo VTS, Peugeot 306 GTI, great car, for example, fall in this new category. Saxo VTS, my God, I drove one of them as a young man, and I can't legally tell you what I did with it. Anyway, Cross 13 in local news, the new Lidl, where did that go? Local news, the new Lidl in Portlaoise is going to have multiple free charge points and a large solar array in the roof. You see, actually Portlaoise has been pushed as some kind of eco town. It's going to be interesting in fairness. They want to put in a whole heap of charge points into it, so it's going to be pretty good. I hope we're not left at the mercy of someone like Lidl to do it all. I hope that we actually end up with proper car park, extra car park spaces somewhere else beyond parking in a shop. You know, there's plenty of car park spaces in the town, but it'd be really good to have large solar arrays on the roof. I really think that'd be a genius idea, that we could charge using the power of the sun, that we can actually get that kind of charge units going on. And if they make it a public thing, if they make it something we can see and feel and touch, you know, and understand how it works, we might see a way that we can do it in our own homes as well. You know, it's always a way. 187, a new high today. I don't think that's that. I think the highest concurrent viewers I think we've ever had was 190 something, 195 at any 1 minute, and it's sustained for a long time. The highest number of people watching the live stream was the one that was on. I did the launch of the Say It Leon, and there was 14,500 people watched that. So that was concurrent viewers was off the charts at that stage. It was kind of cool. Anton Sturesen says, "Hi Bob, might have missed it, but what's up with that new car sign behind you? Greetings from a rainy, miserable Sweden." Now, new people would say something about new car. So new car, just put new cars behind me, just to remind you all, is all about new cars. And I'm going to be changing my car in the near future. My Leon is going, and we're going to replace it with something else. But we're currently in negotiations for stuff. So Bob's buying a used Leaf to replace a Say It, but he won't say. Maybe. I don't know. The Say It's got to go. I don't know what I'm going to replace it with. I don't know whether I want the electric car. It's the problem. I don't know whether I really want it. But the problem is, on the flip side of that, the Leon owes us nothing. The car has done, I don't know how many miles, 110,000 kilometers or something. It did 6,000 kilometers last year. It never missed a beat. Not once. Cold, rain, wind, whatever. Turn the key, goes. That's it. Brilliant car. And the thoughts of not having that security, knowing the car is out there, just works day and night, is kind of scary. Ocean Froggy, just starting 370 kilometers BEV trip to headwind to southern tip of the country. Should be on one charge. What are you driving? 370 kilometers on one charge in a Tesla or something. Are you going? Oregon Thruster, November through March, the UK averages 9 Celsius or less cold, rain, wind, speed, terrain, etc. All punish range. Unsure how real world EV buyers will react to the idea that they need good weather for longer trips. Yeah, but see, some people, I would be one of them, right? So I could get, that Peugeot has half a tank of diesel out there. I could get into that now at 4:05 and drive till the sun went down and then onwards to the coastline without worrying. And then I could get out to the arse end of the coastline and go, yeah, it'd be all right. I'll limp it back to a petrol station somewhere and put in some diesel, keep going. You know, there's a mind shift you have to make to get that, to get people to understand you can do that in electric cars. It's just, you got to shift your head a little bit to make it happen. There's 106 likes. You can hit the like button though if you want. It's okay, but it's actually 106 likes. Byron, you're alright. Byron's very defensive of me, and I know it's great. Annie McPhee says, oil is taxed differently based on a usage, while is my be refined to different final level products, helping differentiation of use. There is no reason government can't tax vehicle chargers and require a separate meter in homes for them by law, etc. Control the tax on new fuel. You could do that for sure, but you could. I was just going to say, as Cross point out, you could easily bypass when someone puts that sort of thing in. There's always some sort of way of getting around it. You can get into a 3-pin plug, you can plug in a different one, put in your own unit out the back. There's all kinds of ways you can make that happen. It sounds like a really good plan, but people always find a way to cheat the system, and that's always going to be a big effort for anybody to get through. Byron says, get the GTE, but if you love the e-Golf on your video, electric in town, you can get to Dublin, etc. if you wish. That's what I was thinking as well. See, I don't know whether I want PHEV or I want hybrid or I want whatever it is. I don't have the money to buy a new car, that's for sure. So I'm not going to run out and buy a brand new car. But what I would like is to experience a longer term electric use. So that's my only thought about electric cars, is I would really like to experience what it's like to have one for 3 or 6 or 12 months, rather than this kind of 1 week here in this one, then a week in another one, then 2 weeks in that one, then 3 weeks in this one, then a week in another one. And you know, it's that same thing comes up the whole time. Steve says, Bob, why are you getting rid of the Say It Leon? Isn't it giving you trouble? The yoke is 10-year-old and I'll keep it until it craps up and valueless now anyway. Because it's time. We've had it for 14 years. I bought that car brand new. There's one owner, me. That's the only owner who's been on it. My wife's been driving it now for the thick end of 10 years, I suppose, daily. And it does about 6,000 kilometers a year. But from tax perspective, fuel perspective, I would save quite a bit by going electric. Quite a lot. Like, the tax that car is it €200 or something like that every 3 months? and to tax an electric car is like 150 quid for a year. And electric prices, like where I am, my electricity here is like 13-14 cent per kilowatt hour without a night meter. So I could easily save a couple of hundred quid a year, if not more, 500-600 quid a year on just fuel and tax. And then there's service and stuff. Now, obviously, I don't service electric cars. I've never served an electric car, so I don't know what it's like. But it can't be that hard. I've definitely changed all the brake pads and suspension and stuff on cars. I bet you it's pretty much the same. Government could put red dye in electrons that you do with diesel. God, that's true from Hitstar. Rusty Bun says, Bob, I'm looking at a 2011 Citroen DS4 1.6 Auto as my first car for my daughter. Any thoughts? DS4 1.6 diesel. Yeah, it's not a bad car, I suppose. You probably get a fairly good deal on it. Citroens don't tend to hold their value terribly well, but they're actually they're okay cars to drive. I wouldn't really have a problem with them. First car for your daughter, 2011. You could probably get something with a heavier clutch in it. My problem is if you're going manual, which you should, if it's her first car and she's learning to drive, learn in a manual, because you get a license that allows you to be able to drive a manual and an automatic. If you learn in an automatic and they test the automatic, you're only allowed to drive automatics. But you could look for something in the German range that have a heavier clutch in them that would last longer. And I know it's a bit of a heavier clutch, harder to kind of change the gears and stuff, but it still would last a bit longer because they tend to ride the clutches. Learner drivers tend to get to the bite and then leave it there. So it can do an awful lot of damage. Passat GTE, yeah, I do like the Passat GTE a lot, and in a couple of weeks' time I have the estate version of the GTE. It is a fab car. One of the first kind of plug-in hybrids that I thought was just really, really good. Such a quiet, beautiful, long-distance cruiser, and it's a 1.4 TSI, so it's a lovely yoke to drive as well. Right, we have come to 4 o'clock. We're just creeping up on the 4 o'clock mark. It's been 2 hours. This day has flown again. We've done it again. Another Sunday service. Now, Sunday service next week won't be happening. I am taking 2 days off, right? I'm taking a day, Saturday and Sunday off next week, because the first 2 days I will have taken off this year so far. And it's no joke, 7 days a week, every single day, 7 days a week for the last... month and a half or 2 months or something, whatever it is, since the first of the year. So I've really I need a day off. But I am going to be putting a lot of videos over this week coming. It's also a midterm break for the kids as well, so the kids are off for the whole week next week. I should do some filming in the morning. There is other films on YouTube from me. I didn't make them. Ones where I'm doing the Irish Car of the Year. I've done them. If you look up Continental Tires on YouTube, you'll find a video that I'm in. Myself and Tony Conlon, and I make another video tomorrow of that. I'm not making it, I'm just going to be in it again. It's great presenting stuff. Podcast of this will be out next Sunday, and we're going to have loads more content. So thank you again for joining me once again on this Sunday. It's been a wonderful Sunday. Hopefully the weather will improve over the next couple of weeks because the kids are off for the next week. Enjoy whatever it is that keeps you occupied for the rest of the day. Never look inwards, always look outwards, and always think of the future ahead of you. Until the next time, I will see you on the far side.